All right, welcome back to the second hour of At the Round Table with MAMLEO. And folks, if you're hearing that in the background, Dr. Bradley is fascinated with those sneakers. So if you know where you can get them, what size, Dr. Bradley?
I'm a 13.
So, oh my God, that's bigger than a hero sandwich. Welcome back to At the Round Table with MAMLEO. We want to thank our sponsor, the Money Store. For all your mortgage needs, give branch manager Cora Holbrook a call at area code 508-345-4726. That's 508-345-4726 is the call-in number here. Again, we want our guest is in studio today. In a moment, we're going to get to him. Suffolk County District Attorney Kevin Hayden is in the building here. He's here to answer your questions, but also talk about what the DA's office does and doesn't do. I think also a lot of folks don't understand that the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office is not just Boston based, right? They have Chelsea, Winthrop, and Revere. And I think that gets lost. So they also deal with issues out there. And I think one of the biggest things, and we're going to talk about that a little bit, is that although, you know, Dr. Bradley and I are retired police officers, that I've always understood that we work very closely with the DA's office, but they are a separate entity. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes when the two overlap, and I know we're not going to get into the details because there's some issues that are out there that are before the court and the DA's office. So I'm going to respect the process and not put the DA on the spot. Not that we're afraid to ask those questions, but I understand, because I understand that process, it's not appropriate to go there in certain matters when things are still pending out there, innocent until proven guilty. But I say that to because, again, I think the public needs a better education on how the system works. And a lot of times it's to be proactive in doing that. I've always said that even in law enforcement is that people, we don't understand the process. And then like when we have a shooting and deadly force, people not understanding, okay, it doesn't mean that, like, I've heard people say something like, well, why didn't they shoot them in the hand? Mm-hmm. Not understanding our training is that when we are forced to use deadly force, it is not, our targets are not people with things in their hands. It is to stop the threat. But it's hard to explain that to someone when they don't understand that process ahead of time, and now something has happened and they think you're making it up because of what took place there. So we're going to get into that in a moment. If you want to give us a call here, the call-in number here is 617-282-0685. 617-282-0685 is the number. And along with that is my brother Rhodes, the Rhodes Scholars here, came in on 707. And Dr. Bradley is here as well. And Pastor Hobbs is here as well. Also, just want to remind folks of the fundraiser taking place here today at the studio there.
Yes, 12 to 5 is our fundraiser from Boston Praise Radio TV Network. We're doing a telethon outside in front of the church, so there'll be giveaways, there'll be food and music, and so we're just encouraging people to come and support Boston Praise Radio and TV Network. You don't have to wait till this afternoon. You can go to $Capital BPRTV Cash App. We are tax deductible.
Right. And we're trying to move this discussion from just on a Saturday morning of MAMLEO, but a Monday through Friday, right? It is important that our community is informed every single day. Absolutely. Right? And we want to fill that void. And it's a needed void with everything that's going on in this country. Information, education is the most important component because we're suffering from the lack of it. So one more time, sir.
Yeah. So again, 12 to 5 is our telethon. You can go to $Capital BPRTV. It is Boston's only FCC licensed Black-owned multimedia platform in
this state. In the state. So again, we're happy to welcome back. It's been a minute. Suffolk County District Attorney Kevin Hayden. You know, we have a lot of questions, but the most important question I'm going to ask you this morning is how are you and your family? Because I think that gets lost in the job when you're in the public eye, the toll that it takes on your family, the time. I see you out there, not just because it's election time, but I see you out there quite a bit at these crime scenes. You've always been someone I respected in that regard, that it's always not just sent the team, but you understood the importance of people seeing you, the head, at these incidents. And I see you there all the time. So I want to thank you for that. But again, how are you and your family doing, sir?
Well, thank you. First of all, good morning, brothers. It's good to see you. And by the way, I just plugged the fundraiser one more time. I saw them shutting up on the way in. So looks like you got some good plans for later on this afternoon. So that's my final plug. They're already busy working, setting up out there, people. So you want to hit that. Family, family is good. I wouldn't be here without them, right? I now have, I can't even call them boys anymore. I got two young black men with good heads on their shoulders and doing well in school and grinding, playing their sports and doing all that. And they, they're my joy. They keep me going. And my wife is my strength and my shield. I would never have stepped into this role in the first place without her, and without her support. Look, no one said this job was easy, and no one said in this job, and whether it's me or whether it's even assistant district attorneys or victim witness advocates that work in my office, it's not for everybody. It's a hard role. It requires a calling. But I was called to do it, and part of that calling was my family also knowing that they're part of that calling. So, look, I don't do anything on my own strength, but without them, I wouldn't be here. And they're with me all the time. They know what I'm doing, and they know, they know when Daddy's not going to be around, and they know when he is, and balance is the key to life. I work hard to make sure that I'm still at home, still with them, still present. So that's so important.
That's good. And also, I know your dad has passed, but I want to talk because I think he was a big, important, key part of your life. Not that your mom wasn't, but your dad was someone that a lot of the community knew as well. So I think we understand where you get that work ethic, where you get that background. So we'll talk a little bit about your dad as well, because I know he's no longer with us, but I think he played an important role in your life.
Yeah, it's funny. He passed away shortly after I was appointed as a DA. So that was a challenging time because I had just stepped in the role, just new in the office, and next thing I knew, my dad took a turn for the worse, and no longer with us now. And it's bittersweet, but he left a good legacy. And for those of you who don't know, so my dad was. He was the president of NAACP at one point. He was assistant superintendent of Boston Public Schools, one of the founders of the METCO program. But most importantly, because that was his passion, that's his name, most importantly, but this is
public
service. He was a historian. He was a historian of African American history, nationally recognized, certainly the most preeminent historian on African American history here in the Boston area in New England. He's the one that inspired me to public service. He's the one that led me in an understanding of civil rights and the movement, what we as Black people need to aspire to, how we need to be together, what we need to do to be socially responsible and active. I mean, he was known everywhere. He knew the streets like the back of his hand. It was amazing. He inspired my desire for public service. My mom, on the other hand, because she's passed too, Mother's Day before last. They both served me in different ways, and in some ways they both inspired me in these ways. But my mom was more on the faith side of things. If you know anything about me, that my faith is a big part of my walk in my life, and that's because I had a praying mom. It's because I had a praying grandmother, so they really girded me up in that way. So I give honor to both of them.
No, and I appreciate that. I think sometimes that's why I really like to give people the backstory, right, of individuals. We come on and we talk about things that are right now, but I think it doesn't shake in particular because a lot of us, including myself, did not grow up with a father in the home, and I am very blessed that my daughters have that. So I think they think that Black men are absent in the home, right? And a lot of what we deal with in the public safety arena, if we connect the dots back, that's usually the missing component in people's lives, that direction of a father, right? And the importance of that. It's not just child support, it is emotional support. And that's why I like to highlight that, because I think sometimes hoping that people will make the connection that missing, that absence is a huge void in not just men's lives, but in the kids' lives in general. So I thank you for highlighting that. So we're going to pivot a little bit here, sir. Also, if you could explain to Dr. Bradley Rose, feel free to jump in here. And folk callers, if you have a comment or question for the DA, it's 617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. You're listening to At the Roundtable with MAMLEO. Can you explain a little bit again? I just want to highlight that a little bit, because a lot of times where we see things happening, and it's a blessing that we don't see you more in Chelsea and Winthrop but where the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, the geographically where you cover, it's in the Commonwealth.
Yeah, so we cover Boston, obviously, Chelsea, Revere, and Winthrop. Boston by far the largest population size of the four towns that make up Suffolk County.
And Boston is unusual in too, because in most of the other towns, you're not overlapping with other departments of jurisdiction. Boston, I mean, like the state police is a part of what you do, anything that they do in those areas. The MBTA police, as well as some of the other agencies that are intertwined into Boston, where a lot of the other towns is just them, and maybe if they have an occasion with the T. So that's the bulk of, would you say, of your cases and issues?
It's definitely the bulk. I mean, we have obviously a great relationship with all of our police departments. Obviously, the Chelsea, Winthrop, and Revere are a little smaller, but they have departments that we're working with regularly as well. On pretty much everything. They would be involved in a situation where there was a homicide, but if a homicide happens in those jurisdictions, then the Massachusetts State Police take jurisdiction of those cases, and of course wherever the MBTA is and matters that happen within their jurisdiction, they would handle as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So for Dr. Bradley, I know he's gearing up his question. I want to just one of the things I want to commend you for is that when I became a young officer and I saw what your ADAs, what they were making, the salaries and what they were, I mean, you've really improved that office in that regard, getting them up. They're nowhere near what they deserve, but you have brought a lot of attention and actually elevated that office, and making sure that their pay is helping them to stay. Because I mean, when I remember DAs making about $35,000 a year. I'm not sure what the salary is now, but I know it's. I mean, you were one.
You want to guess what I was making when I started?
Yes, please tell us.
27.5, I think it was. Maybe 28, but I think it was 27.5.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And
in Boston? You're living in Boston?
At home.
When Ralph Martin hired me, I went home. I said, "Mom, I got great news." She's like, "What's the great news?" I was like, "I'm going to be working in the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office with for Ralph Martin." And she said, "What's the bad news?" And I was like, "I'm moving home." I had to move back in to start my career in the DA's office. So when I first got to I've been the president of the MDAA, Massachusetts District Attorney Association, for the last year. And since I got to office, been working very, very hard on pay equity. It's not just our attorneys, it's our victim witness advocates, our support staff, it's everybody, woefully underpaid. I've been pounding my fists on the table with the legislature since I got there, letting folks know that, DA's budgets from a state budget standpoint is the best money you're ever going to spend, to make sure that the front lines of community safety, after the police do their job, that the work continues, and that we hold people accountable in the right way. And that can vary from diversion to actual accountability, probation, jail time, whatever. But bottom line is, when I got to the office, I think the starting salary is about $62,500. We have it's taken a lot of hard work. We've got up to 76 for starting ADAs.
Still not enough. But
still not enough, but it's a start. It's a pretty significant jump over 4 years, and we're not done. We're still working at it. Retention is an issue. When you don't, when there's turnover and you have people coming and going because they can't afford to do it, then that's an issue. So we've been working really hard on that in terms of getting our salaries up, but also in terms of the numbers too. When I first arrived, I think we were probably, I would say, and we're still working at it, we probably could use a good 10, 15 more. We have about 40 more staff in the office now than when I first got there. because you need people to do the job. You need people to do the work. And so that was important. So we've done a lot of things to really work on improving the office, and then all sorts of things that we're doing in terms of for professional development, not just for DAs, not just like, oh, how do you do a motion to suppress, but how's the entire office doing professionally and advancing, whether it's support staff or attorneys or victim witness advocates.
Dr. Bradley?
Yeah, one of the things that one of the questions that I have in my head is community police relations and the role that the DA plays in encouraging and supporting that relationship. Because I think the DA has one of the most powerful positions in our criminal justice system, because they make the determination, are we going to move forward or we're not. But also the perception in the community is that the DA and the police departments
are one and the same.
Are one and the same, or in cahoots with each other. You know what I mean? So when an officer does something wrong, and I know we have something pending, and I'm not asking you to jeopardize whatever you're doing in that area, but I am asking, for your opinion as it relates to what role or how can the DA support a community police relationship by showing, what it would do when an officer is glaringly wrong.
And also, just on top of that, because it made me think about someone hit to his question, is it appropriate to have an independent counsel looking into a matter if it's a law? Because the perception is that that anything we do, like right now, I know you're getting it from both sides on matters that are out there, but is that an option, I guess, for the DA's office to have an independent counsel investigating matters that involve law enforcement?
I think it depends on the situation, and what the conflict is and whether or not that requires an independent situation. So I think, first of all, I will say this, that do we work together collaboratively and well with the police and with our law enforcement partners? Of course we do. We wouldn't be able to do our jobs if we didn't. So we work together collaboratively with our police to make sure that we are ensuring public safety. And that means that when the cases are brought, that we're going to make sure they're handled appropriately. And that's going to require, obviously, working with the police when they end up being witnesses and coming to court and all that sort of stuff. And also investigations. So John Doe investigations in the grand jury, those sorts of things require us working with the police. Our homicide unit works very closely with the police department because the homicide unit directs and controls all investigations. So that'll always be the case. Now, that having been said, we are not the police department, and our job is to do justice and to hold people accountable when it's necessary and appropriate. And that's regardless of whether or not you are a civilian, that's regardless of whether or not you are elected official, whether you work for the school committee, or whether you're a police officer. So they obviously have one case in particular I think is on everyone's mind, but it's not the only circumstance in which we've had to hold a police officer accountable. There must be, and there is inherently, some natural tension between the district attorney's office and police departments. Right. It's just the way that it is, because at the end of the day, we have a job to do that is slightly different. So there's always that natural tension, even when people aren't looking at a high-profile case like the one that I think everyone's thinking about. There's still always that natural tension between the police departments and our office, and any DA's office for that matter. When it comes to that conflict that you mentioned and whether or not there needs to be an independent investigation, there are times where we will refer a case out. There are times where a conflict will result in us asking a different district attorney's office to handle the case. And there's times where other district attorneys' offices will say, "Hey, can you handle the case instead?" So that you have that independent authority handling the case. There's also the Attorney General's office. So there's situations where the Attorney General might handle the case as well. But it really varies from case to case and from circumstance to circumstance. And at the end of the day, in a lot of situations, in many situations, we don't we don't have an issue or a problem with doing our jobs, even when it's difficult.
Yeah.
And we do that every day. We do
Yeah.
that every day. Every decision. Anytime, as you use a homicide as an example, every time there is a homicide, there is someone who's been harmed. There's a community that's been harmed. There's a family that's been harmed, and there's someone on the other side. If we're able to find probable cause to hold someone accountable, there's someone that's accused, and that's hard every time, regardless of who the people are that are involved.
Right. So two things that when you're speaking, I'm thinking about, I think, and this might be simplifying it too much. I think because people understand is that as a young officer, I had to learn, not say the hard way, but I had to learn, I had a case where I was very passionate about. Mm-hmm. And in the DA's office, not fully understanding because I'm getting used to the process that I didn't have the final say in how that was going to go. So I kind of equate it today as a 3-step, almost like we're supposed to have 3 branches of government, right? So we have the initial stage, which is law enforcement that may make the arrest or bring the case before the courts, right? And then we have the DA's office deciding whether or not they're going to prosecute that. And then we have the court system that decides whether or not they're calling balls and strikes on whether or not everything was appropriate and they're going to oversee it. Is that a fair evaluation of each person has a role, but they're separate and independent? And that once I learned that I did not have all the say in this matter, it was very easy for me to do my part of it and then let other folks do. And then if that's what the courts and the district attorney's office decided how they were going to proceed with the case, I had to be respectful of that and go back to staying in my
I think that's right. And look, we have a system in place. It's not perfect because
we're not dealing with perfection.
We're not dealing with perfection. Sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And but you have the judge has a role to play, the defense has a role to play, prosecutors have a role to play, the police have a role to play, and ultimately, we always hope and remain to pray that works. Now, if everyone tries to do everyone else's, just like anything in life, if everyone tries to start doing everyone else's job,
it's not going to
then you have some issues. I've had that even as a young prosecutor. I've made some tough calls before. I remember a particular gun case where I had to tell the officer that was involved who had made the arrest that we weren't going to go forward on the motion to suppress. Mm-hmm. And this was someone who I had a relationship with. We had handled cases before together, and he didn't like that. I said, I'm not. I have a job to do the right thing and to do justice. I cannot go forward on a motion to suppress that I know I can't prove. Right. That's our role. That's our job.
And I think, like I said, that's what I was saying about the people understanding the process, because we get very little of that in the academy, right? And then we have relationships. We know it's like a family in a sense, but we have separate. It's just human nature that you work with someone or you're in the same courthouse all the time. It's someone and there are times when you have opposing views, and I think that's healthy and okay, but we have to separate. Carl, I'm going to get to you in 1 second because I just have one follow-up, and then, gentlemen, feel free to jump in here. Can you explain a little bit, because people don't understand, the DA's office has the primary jurisdiction over homicides in Suffolk County. I think sometimes people get confused because Boston is one of the few police departments, even in the Commonwealth, that is allowed to even investigate a murder in their city. Most cities and towns, like Chelsea, for instance, their police department doesn't investigate homicides. It's the state police that come in on their behalf, as well as Winthrop and Revere, because unfortunately Boston has more homicides, so they have more experience in it. So I think that plays a role in it as well. But can you explain to people how that process works? Because I think there's some confusion sometimes on who investigates murders in the city of Boston, who has final jurisdiction, I should say, over those cases.
Yeah. So, look, make no mistake about it. Our Boston Police Homicide Unit, our Mass State Police, and even the local departments, although they don't have the jurisdiction at the time, all play an absolutely crucial role in investigating homicides and finding witnesses and interviewing witnesses and in helping to make our cases that we ultimately bring and hopefully stand the test of time in court. remember, in any case, but particularly in homicide, so where there's an automatic right to appeal if there's a conviction, you're not just talking about the longevity of the case through the trial. You're talking about appeals. Sometimes you're talking about multiple appeals. But all that to say this, the district attorney's office ultimately directs and controls all homicides. And so when it comes to the charging decisions, when it comes to whether or not a warrant for someone's arrest is going to issue, things of that nature, everything that has to do with the ultimate decisions that bring a case to court, the district attorney's office has that final say. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you that the Boston Police Homicide Unit has all of the men and women that we work with, I think, have a very clear understanding of that, and so we don't really have any issues in terms of how we collaborate. But it is the one area where things are a little different. We will work together with the Boston Police Department on other investigations, sexual assaults, other serious charges, but we don't make the decision. If someone commits an armed robbery, we're not making a decision about whether or not to bring the charge. The police is. Right. But in the situation of homicides, we're ultimately making that.
And that's why in all homicide cases, someone from the DA's office will respond. And that's not in every incident that takes place. If there's a shooting, the DA's office may or may not, depending on the severity of the shooting, but they don't come up. But if there's a homicide, the DA's office is there and involved right from the beginning of the process because of the seriousness of that case. And that's why I think people get confused. They're not there as spectators. Yeah. They are the ones who are deciding on how this case is going to be prosecuted. And this is why I said where we try to inform people here so people understand the process when they're on a crime scene as well, what people's roles are in that.
Well, one of the things you mentioned is that he's on scene on homicide.
Yes.
In my day, that didn't happen.
No.
In my day, it's usually a team. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's usually a team. You knew the DA because he was the person that.
But you didn't see him.
But you knew the DA representative. Mm-hmm. You very seldom saw the DA. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I took my hat off to you on that one because it's important that when you're dealing with the homicide, that the officers are not doing something that will jeopardize the prosecution, right. Because I mean, in their zeal to capture the individual, right. You can contaminate evidence. I have been all over that one.
But I think also it says to the public as well that the importance of the office. You know, when you see the leader on scene, right, and you can't be there all the time, but it speaks volumes to the community when they can identify who you are on these scenes, right? Yeah. That like I said, that goes a long way. Yeah. So let's. Good.
So I just say before you get a call waiting, but look, I was that young ADA that was on the homicide response team when I was in the office before. It's built in you. I might have been a little off, so I did it longer than most people would. I can remember the head of homicide called me into his office one day, and he's like, "You're done." And I'm like, "No, I'm not." He's like, "No, You've been doing this for a long time, and it's time for you to step back on someone else do it because it takes a toll on you when you're responding to scenes over and over and over and over again." So I've responded to more homicide scenes as a young assistant district attorney than I have as a DA. Unfortunately, there were a lot more homicides back then too. So. But you know, that experience has led me to be able to, you know, not just show up on the scene and just be the guy standing there, but actually have an understanding of what's going on. So we have a young prosecutors there. That young prosecutor is also, just so people have an understanding, is always in contact with our chief of homicide. So if there are issues with regards to search and seizure, warrants, what needs to happen, who needs to be spoken to. There's always, like you mentioned earlier, from the very beginning, our office is involved in the investigation. Sometimes whoever's going to be assigned the case will get out there right away. Sometimes my first assistant will be there. My first assistant was with me the other day at South Station. Sometimes the chief of homicide will be out there. It varies from situation to situation and who's available. But we are involved from day one.
And to that point, I promise, Carl, we're going to grab this. To that's what you just said. The homicide that just took place at the MBTA South Station. A lot of people would think that the MBTA would be investigating that, but Boston is the primary investigator on that, not the T, right? Because
as soon as it becomes a homicide, yes.
Right.
If it wasn't a homicide,
Right.
then the MBTA would have
right.
jurisdiction.
And that's why I say it's important to explain this to people, because most people would be calling the T thinking, oh, it happened on the MBTA property, but because it's a homicide, they don't investigate murders. That it's the DA's office in Boston, the people from the DA's office that are working with the homicide unit in Boston that are dealing with that matter. I'll relay. Yeah. Okay. Good morning, caller. You have a question or comment for the DA?
Peace. I have a little bit of both. This is Jamal calling back. Yes.
All right.
So, first of all, good morning, DA Hayden.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm holding in my hand your father's book, actually.
Which one?
Because, well, the African Americans in Boston more than 350 years, which everybody should have. I know I found a stash at the African American Museum of History that they still had, but I went through those real quick, giving them out, Touch FM and all that.
I didn't get mine, Jamal.
Yeah.
You didn't get yours?
No. What about me?
Oh, man. So this was when Touch had first started out, we was passing them things out. And in fact, Brother Charles went back and got the last box.
Okay.
But yeah, in any event, that thing that was done at that time, which was a pretty big deal, historically significant and so on. And of course, at the time, Bank of Boston chipped in and all that. But you gave a great description of your father, of course. And I just wanted to add that other thing because, yes, historian, but a lot of people might be familiar or should be familiar with that particular piece that he did on African Americans in Boston for 350 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, secondly, here's what I want to say to you, sir. Boy, would I not want to be in your shoes.
You Pastor Hobbs, though, right? You like him, right?
No, right. No, because what I have seen you endure, it really saddens me. We're all talking about getting out the vote and everything like that. But I think that politics, obviously nationally, but now locally, have just gotten so doggone nasty.
And personal.
Yes. And often, too, and often wrong. And just be dead wrong, lying and standing on it, strong and wrong. So I watched that last debate. Many of my friends from the hood, many of them who were there, everybody feel like, Miss Rawlins won that debate. That's not what I saw. What I saw was very disheartening for me. I didn't like that debate at all, didn't like the tone or whatever. I say all this to say that, to me, you are clearly the one who is sober-minded, has that spirit and that temperament that I want, because I don't want my DA to be Eldridge Cleaver. Okay? I want somebody who is straight down the middle, and I'm a revolutionary. I want somebody who is straight down the middle, sober-minded and candid. And then this is why I was talking about not wanting to be in your shoes, because it's almost like you're darned if you do and you're darned if you don't. So some people have put this thing out that you was in the pocket and weak and all this type of stuff. Then when you make the courageous and bold, and clearly I don't need to see the video. I know whatever you saw must have been compelling enough for you to go out on that limb in order to charge that officer. So in that, showing that courage, and then you got dogged for that too. So now I don't understand the way the wind is blowing. But I do know, I wish early voting was today. I don't see this, and I don't like, I'll land on this, because in the last segment we talked about another campaign and a sister who was getting treated really bad about her appearance and her tone, her skin tone and all. And this is what I mean about the nastiness. And so for you, I'm also equally concerned with some of the stuff that they've done to try to emasculate you and make you like you some punk. Okay. And I as a light skinned guy, I don't like it one bit. And then lastly, I'll land on this, because of course the new thing is, you and your you're hoity-toity. You have 9 homes on Martha's Vineyard, right?
Don't I wish?
Yeah, right. 'Cause I was
Not
about to
making
ask you
27,000.
I was about to ask you, could I go down for a week? Listen, but once again, because I'm a student of history, I know the real deal, and I know that your father, decided to go to the vineyard, right? And that's where he did a lot of his writing and thinking and, cooling out as was much deserved. So whatever you have on the vineyard, I don't know your business, I'm going to guess it came from family property. Could that be correct?
That's correct. And
Yeah.
look, that's we as a people need to begin to understand that there
No one takes issues with the Kennedys.
leaving a legacy is a blessing.
Absolutely.
And you talk about having our own authority, our own power, our own ability to have generational wealth. That comes from building legacy.
Hello.
I ain't not ashamed that my parents built a legacy for me. I'm
Neither
never
am I.
I'll stand on that all day long, every day.
Neither am I.
Right. Your father left you a house? Because all my father did was left.
No, Jamal, he left the house. Not the one you're in. But to that point, because Jamal is right on target, and that's why I love this brother. He and I have some very in-depth conversations as well. He's my partner on Sunday, but my partner every day. Is that going back probably over 20 years now, when the Boston Globe did a spotlight story about black wealth, and they were specific with black wealth in Boston, the net worth of black Boston was $8 compared to $250,000 for white Boston. And people were see, they get these good jobs, and immediately, because I had been I bought my first home. Because my mentor, my mom couldn't afford it. And I'm not trying to make this story about me, but just to tie in what he's saying and what your dad is that was a change in my life, right? I knew exactly why that wealth was being generated. It's because these folks who owned homes 30 years ago, and if it was paid off, every year it was generating, but every time you were paying rent, there was no return on that investment other than having a roof over your head for one more month. So what your dad did was something that back then was even more monumental, because it was very difficult for black people, and it's tough today.
It still is, yes.
So here's what I'm gonna scale it back just a little bit while still staying on point with what you're saying. So when you talk about, and then talk about my dad leaving a legacy, right? We talked about it earlier. He inspired me to be a public servant, right? He left a legacy that allows me to have a place on the vineyard to go to. But the biggest legacy he left, and the one that I think he wants to leave for everybody when it comes to we as black people, is to know your history. All of it.
Be no mystery.
The good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. And to not just know it, but to embrace it, to claim it,
and learn from
to
it.
be proud about it and learn from it, because you cannot get to where you want to go if you don't know where you've been
or where your people have been.
And that's why my dad was so, I mean, you look, you did every day was Black History Day. Every month was Black History Month in my home. Okay. Yeah. On our coffee table, you didn't see the Boston Globe or the Boston Herald. It was the Bay State banner sitting on our coffee table, and everywhere else for that matter, because he was a hoarder, so they were all over the place. And Ebony and Jet and Black Enterprise. And all the books, that's how
it makes a difference.
That's how we grew up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jamal, thank you, brother.
Thank you, Jamal.
Appreciate you.
All right, and last thing,
Yes.
let me say before I go, D.A. Hayden, since you've been elected, we haven't really had time to, we know each other, but, I would like to further our relationship, and I think you'll find me to be a sober-minded individual as well.
Hey, man, it's been too long. And the last thing I'd say before you get off, Jamal, to get to your original point, look, I don't know how or why I was called to this, but I was. And if you know the story about how I had my conversation with my wife when I decided to go for the appointment, she wanted nothing to do with this. And out of nowhere, she was like, go for it. God bless you. And I got your back 110%.
Wow.
That's when I knew I was called.
Okay.
I don't know why I was called for this. I don't know why I was built for it, but I know I was. I know how to do this job. I know how to do it in a way that is fair, that is equitable, that is doing the next right thing for the next right reason. And that ain't always easy, but that is what I will always do.
Absolutely. Gentlemen?
Yes, sir. Well, I have faith in you, and you have my vote. And I hope a lot of other people get into the mindset. Like, we don't have to agree on every, 1,000 things. But if we agree on 990, then we can do something.
Yes.
Amen.
Yeah.
All right. Y'all be blessed.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care.
Great.
You gentlemen have anything on that side?
Well, I just wanted to ask him, again, like as the DA, you mentioned the fact that, Larry mentioned it was a 3-part process and everything like that. And then part of that is like I didn't hear you mention the jury, so how does the jury play a role in that?
Yeah. Look, the jury plays in my opinion, the biggest role, and that's why we want good, fair, and impartial juries. And that's why we want juries that look like the communities we serve. That's why I want cases that happen in Suffolk County being tried in Suffolk County.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The process that ends with the jury trial, that's what keeps everything in balance.
Okay.
I've seen it. When I was a young prosecutor in juvenile court, I was working in the court at the time where they had no jury pool. With all due respect to some of the judges at the time, they weren't as interested in trying cases. We weren't in a real courthouse. We went to the Edward Brook courthouse after that. But at first, we were in the you nodding your head. We were in the annex down in the old courthouse. It was a pit. Yeah. Nothing got tried. Yeah.
So
nothing got tried.
So
everything
it was like a plea bargain and stuff.
Everything
like
got pled. When everything pleads, when there is no right to a jury trial, when there's no ability to have that, because the defendant is the one that chooses whether or not to have a trial. When the defendant says, I am asking for my right to a jury trial because I want the Commonwealth to prove its burden beyond a reasonable doubt that I committed the crime before a jury of my peers. And I know there's some controversy around that for us as a people. I get that. That's a different question. But that's what keeps the system honest. If everything just plays out, things get out of whack. And I saw it when I was in juvenile court, and I saw it after we went to the Edward Brook courthouse. After we went to the Edward Brook courthouse, all of a sudden we started trying cases more. And you saw that sort of balance get restored. The jury trial is the foundation of it all.
So that was the second part of my question is like, how do people get to be picked on to be on a jury? It ain't something about being registered to vote.
Yeah. So, first of all, you get something randomly in the mail that tells you to come to be a juror. Right?
But is it only sent to registered voters though?
You know what? I don't think. That's a good question.
No, that's one of the reasons why I asked you that question is to lead into why people.
I should know the answer to that question.
There's a variety of sources that they look at your license, who has license. I mean, there's a variety of sources they use to pick.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not just based on registered voters.
I'm pretty sure you don't. To be a registered voter, that would I think shrink the pool.
Shrink the pool. Okay.
So you have to be a resident, right?
Okay.
So you get something randomly in the mail, tells you come to serve on a jury. You will come in. There may be 60 to 100 people there that day, depending on what's going on. And if there's a case that goes to trial, they have to impanel a jury. Then there's this legal process by which the defense attorney and the prosecutor, together with the judge, select a fair and impartial jury. They ask all sorts of questions to make sure that you're going to be able to sit on that jury, that you're going to be able to complete the service
and understand what's going on.
And that you're going to be able. You have to. We've seen situations where someone gets there and they don't understand English, so that that becomes difficult. But also, can you be fair?
Fair,
and
impartial,
Right?
exactly.
Can you be fair and impartial?
Yeah.
Are you more likely to believe the testimony of a police officer just because they're police officer?
Mm-hmm.
If the answer to that question is yes, then you're gonna have a hard time being
most
fair
likely
and
be
impartial,
striped.
right? Or if you're like my wife, who's like, oh, that person did it, even though they haven't heard any evidence yet, then you're probably not gonna be able to sit on the jury. So there's a whole array of questions. We'd be here all day if I went through the whole process, but then the jury selected, and it ends up being either 6 or 12, depending on whether it's district court or superior court, and alternates.
But that's just part of public service for the community.
Yeah,
Okay,
for the community, and that's a great. That's a significant public service. And then we have grand jurors who will sit for 3 to 4 months, depending on how many, whether they're sitting 3 or 4 days
And
a week.
that's a secret process.
No, yeah, that is kind of crazy. I was going to ask about that, but you said it's a secret. So,
Yeah.
I'm not really in favor of grand juries. That goes back to the common law back in England. That's
It goes back to you getting indicted hand sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. We're one of the. In fact, the prosecutor is the person in there. The defense attorney's not there. I really think that the pre-trial hearing is, in my opinion, preliminary hearing is a better way to go. Because both. But that's not my question. I'm just articulating. My question is more about back to community police relations, back to Black, Latino, brown, yellow kids being the predominant amount of a representation in our prison system. And officers targeting communities because of who they are. What role do you see the DA playing in preventing something like that? How can the DA say, hey, listen, you know what? You're always here with this type of person. What's going on here?
Yeah.
And how does the DA work with leadership in the policing to prevent that type of abuse?
So I'd say a couple of different things about that. One is if it's there and we can see if it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And if we have to call it out, we have to call it out. That's where, and we talked about this earlier, that's where some natural tension between the district attorney's office and the police can arise, whether it's a less significant case or whether it's a very, very, very high level case. On the other, and I will tell you another story. So I taught at one class in teach there, but I was a guest at a law school class. And a young Latinx man who was in the class when it was time for Q&A, he raised his hand. He said, I think I want to be a prosecutor when I'm done with law school. I think that's my interest. And everyone in my family just craps all over that every time I talk about, you selling out? How are you going to the dark side? How are you going to do that? Da, 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 da. And he's like, and I don't know what to tell my family and friends. And he said, so what do I tell them? And I wasn't expecting that question. It kind of caught me off guard a little bit. And I thought for a second, but then I looked at him and I said, well, you tell them if not you, then who? Right? Because if you don't do it, someone else is going to do it.
Very similar to policing.
So we need to be
represented
as people of color. If we want to change the system, we need to be in the system.
Yep.
And that's every system. You want to talk about Black power and systematic change and how we influence systems, we got to be in them, right? So we need our police department. I work hard at it every day. We've the 32.9% of the people that we brought into the office since I started identify as a person of color, because we've been working very hard at making sure more and more every day that our office looks like the communities we serve. So we need to have diversity within our office. The police department needs to have diversity within its ranks, and then on top of that, be engaged in what. And I think most people understand what it means when we say about talking about real community policing and community prosecution. Really being engaged with community, not just there when the times are bad, but be there all the time. Be there walking the beats, knowing who your neighbors are, knowing who your community is, knowing the communities you serve. We commit in my office, and I know that the commissioner thinks in similar ways. So I committed to a community engagement team in our office because I knew that one person that does community engagement isn't going to be enough for us to really serve our community in that way. The community engagement team's job in my office is now not to then just go do more of community engagement by themselves. Their job is to help push our office out into community.
Well, let me just say, because we're running short on time, I just want to say I commend you because, like I said, when you picked your chief of staff, Charlene, I worked with her on the Post. Fantastic person, very, very talented, very bright individual. But because we got in a few minutes, I want to give you some time at the end of at the end, because a lot of people saying that the DA's office is soft on crime, and there are crimes. There have been a lot of reforms. This is why I talk about the education piece. That a lot of these reforms, because when we had larceny over 250, well, we know now most people have a cell phone, and they cost over 250. So there were some modifications so that even young people weren't getting charged for low-level crimes that they would not have been prior to some of this. But like people say, the shoplifting and all of those are leading other. Can you talk a little bit about the reforms and what we're doing to still help businesses and whatnot to deal with the loss? Because someone sent a video the other day where the CVS in Grove Hall, where everything was under lock and key.
Yeah. So you don't. I'll answer this question very simply. I'll talk about retail theft in context with it. You do not. You don't want to be soft on crime or tough on crime. We have to continually work to do what we can do to deal with the elephant in the room, which is the racial disparities that exist within our criminal legal system that, quite frankly, impact both not just people that are charged, but also the community and victims and witnesses as well. We are disproportionately impacted by our criminal legal system on every front. But you do not want to be soft on crime, and you don't want to be tough on crime. You want to be smart on crime.
I like that.
You have to be smart on crime. So in the realm of retail theft, which is a significant issue across the country right now, and a significant issue in Boston, if anyone's paying attention, we don't want stores closing and drugstore deserts existing because stores have closed, because shoplifting has become so rampant. We have the tools that we need to handle retail theft, even with the change in the law from 250 up to where it is. But at the end of the day, you have to treat every situation in an appropriate fashion. What do I mean by that? A young woman or an older woman who has a young baby who has no money and needs diapers, and who goes and steals diapers, does not get treated the same way as the person that is running into Lululemon and running out with $3,000 worth of items that day and then peddling them in order to make money. You don't treat those cases the same way.
Gotcha.
You cannot treat those cases the same way.
We have to make this a regular segment with you. Can we get a commitment?
Yeah, let's do that.
Absolutely.
We can do it.
There's
Not enough time,
exactly, right? But we've got a minute left, and I want to give that to you to make your pitch to folks on why they should reelect you as Suffolk County District Attorney. To allow you to make your...
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say simply this. I know I said it earlier. I know I was called to do this. I know I'm built for it. But at the end of the day, we have a lot more work to do. We've done a lot of things to improve the office, improve our relationships with the community. We've done a lot that I know has been instrumental in helping Boston get to historically low crime rates across the board. But we still have more work to do. Mm-hmm. We still have to continue to reach into every pocket, every area, every community within Suffolk County, whether it's people, whether it's immigrants that are in Chelsea, or whether it's someone along a certain area of the Blue Hill Avenue corridor who feels that their streets aren't safe yet. We still have work to do, and we're going to continue to do it. We can't continue to do it if I'm not in office. Right. So if I'm not, I don't know if it'll be as successful.
Quick.
No, when you have a lot of community engagement, and I noticed that sometimes you do the soccer or the basketball. What are some of those programs that you do?
Yeah, I mean those are sort of marquee events for our young people, just to keep them encouraged and keep them active. Soccer for Peace is coming up this week. We do basketball as well. The Worrell brothers and I do a big event with Harlem Lacrosse at the Kroc Center the last couple of years. But that's just one.
No, you definitely
got to cut you off. And while you're talking about people in their pocket, come on down today and support the radio station here while you have your hand in your pocket. Yes. Dr. Bradley?
Be blessed.
Be blessed. Amen. All right, y'all. All right. Take care.
That was great.
Thank you. I think we covered a lot.
Yeah. It's a pleasure meeting you, brother. Pleasure meeting you.
See you, man.
And
Our community telethon fundraiser held on Saturday, August 15th from 12 to 5 p.m. We'll be broadcasting from outside in front of Global Ministries Christian Church at 670 Washington Street, Dorchester, Massachusetts, 02124. Come and enjoy an afternoon of inspiring gospel music, praise, fellowship, and community as we raise vital support and funds needed to keep Boston Praise Radio and TV on the air and serving our community with hope and encouragement. If you can't join us in person, tune in online at www.bostonpraiseradio.tv. Mark your calendars, Saturday, August 15th, 12 p.m. That's Saturday, August 15th, 12 p.m. And you can donate on Cash App at $BPRTV. We hope to see you there.
Everyone.
This is for the dreamers. They say I am a dreamer, 'cause I still believe that anything is possible as long as you work hard. Hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle real hard, hustle. So if I never see ya, never get the chance to meet ya, no, I came up from the bottom, always rooting for the unknown.